Okay, good morning. Thank you so much for coming today. I today would like to, the last two times I was here, last time I was here was a snow blizzard earlier this year, but the last two times I was here, I inundated you with lots of slides and lots of information. Today I'd like to turn it around and have you share as well, and I'd like to talk about some things. The first thing I want to talk about has to do with the GMOs and genetically modified foods. The more that I study about these things, the more I realize that if you have done any work with such things as understanding what aspartame is about, aspartame disease, an ignored epidemic. This is Dr. Roberts' book years ago. This is not new. But this is something that is very interesting because aspartame and MSG have the very same effects on the body that GMOs do. Now this is scary because genetically modified food, isn't it something how the Food and Drug Administration is telling you that there's no difference between GMO and non-GMOs? However, when you go to the U.S. Patent Office, they're patenting GMOs because they are different. Isn't that interesting in our government that we can have such a diverse look at what is going on? Well, the big thing about GMOs, there's 9 basic foods that are now genetically modified. And the thing is this, is that what I struggle with in teaching people is as to how these foods, these basic foods, are used, because just a couple days ago, someone was in my office and they said, well, I eat chicken, and it's all natural. I said, by what degree? In other words, have you investigated the farmer? Have you checked to find out how the chicken is grown? Oh, it's absolutely all natural. I said, is the organic feed that's being given to this chicken, have you checked? Because most organic feed that's given to chickens is mostly soy-based. Oh, I never knew that. So just saying that it's natural does not mean that it is healthy, that it promotes wellness. So the 9 GM food crops are soy and corn. Now go to your vitamin store. Think about where you find corn. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid, not all, but some. When you think of corn, you think of all the different sources, including some alcoholic beverages. Corn is something that is so diverse, and they're trying to use it as fuel and the like, but corn, the thing that I associate with corn after the word GMO is mold. Do you realize that over 50% of American homes have either had flooding or have moisture in a moist basement? They open up the basement door and they smell this mold, and they don't know why their brain doesn't work. They don't know why they're sick. Back to GMOs. So soy, corn, cotton. Cottonseed oil is in nearly every grocery store salad dressing. Read the labels. Cottonseed oil is there. So that cotton is something that, yes, you can think of wearing cotton clothes because you don't have the outgassing that polyester does. That's why you'd want to sleep on cotton sheets, because the polyester outgasses, and it actually is so that when we have baby syndrome where we have the baby dying at night and they're saying why, frequently it's the chemicals that have been put in the mattress, the chemicals that have put in so that they have actually been proven as causes rather than shaken baby syndrome type thing. Okay, soy, corn, cotton, canola. I'm amazed how many people think that canola is good for you. Remember, canola came out of Canada. It's rapeseed. Canola is not something that was ever made for human consumption. It was here in the United States that we decided to start making it for human consumption and started using it in everything, even in health food stores. So don't think, and when you train people and teach people how to shop, they should never think that a health food store is just benign to having some of these ingredients. So canola was actually invented to lubricate farm machinery. Okay? So it was a lubricant for farm machinery and not something that was made to ingest in the body. Sugar beets is number 5. Sugar beets are something that we think of. Red beets, gosh, I think of those as something that helps the liver. I think of those as something that helps the digestive system, the gallbladder indirectly, and along with the bile salts. But sugar beets is something that if you don't know the source, so literally know your food, know your farmer, buy fresh, buy local. These are terms that, yes, they may be terms to an organization, but they really get to be terms that are really necessary for you to know about. Because have you truly investigated who grows the food if you don't grow it yourself? We really need to do this. So, Hawaiian and Chinese papaya. Hawaiian and Chinese papaya is papaya that you will find to be genetically modified. Remember, this is something that actually goes into your genes. The DNA is inserted into the GMO crop, and it can actually transfer into the DNA of the human gut. Wow. So that we had the human gut bacteria. So when Perlmutter came out with his book, earlier this year, Brain Maker, and he wrote in his book a few years ago, Grain Brain, and what happens to the brain when we eat grains. This doesn't happen. Yes, now it's over 40 years that I'm in practice, but I realize how much has changed in the past 30, 40 years. It's mind-boggling because 30 years ago, I would have said eat whole wheat. It was not a big deal. But today, we don't. We stop. And we first of all think of, a few weeks back, a child that seizured here in Pittsburgh. They immediately went to the hospital and were told, and the child stayed at the hospital for 3 days, went through every test known, and the parents, of course, are spastic as to why did this child seizure. And after they did all the tests, they said, well, all the tests are normal. We don't know why. The child will grow out of it. You'll be fine. Goodbye. What? Come on. Our body doesn't do this without a reason. So, back to number 8 is some yellow crookneck squash. Yellow crookneck squash we can often see at a farmer's market, but where did they buy their seeds? We need to be aware of that this genetically modified seeds, now there's 27 countries that have outlawed it? We still haven't here. So that this is really an issue of wanting to know. And the last one is a big one to me, and that's alfalfa. Because many people go and buy their meat, and they said, oh, well, this was grass-fed. But they didn't know as to whether the animal had eaten alfalfa that was genetically modified. So, in other words, it is really getting to be where you need to know your farmer, literally. You want to be asking questions. You want to find out as to how you can go and how do you counter this kind of issue. Because we are seeing, yesterday we had a business meeting for Health by Choice, and my statement was, we are seeing sicker people now than we ever saw over the years with many more layers of issues. Many more layers of issues. So that I appreciated hearing this morning about a YouTube video. I certainly will go home and look at it. And it was shared as Diverse Health Services is a youtube.com. And this is a Dr. R. Tent. I think it's time that we learn to know more cause. It's frightening, and I don't want to be negative or input as to that you should be fearful, but remember, knowledge is power. If you can know how to avoid, how to change, and I believe that Nutritional Frontiers has done an excellent job I think you guys are very lucky to have something like this so close home and be able to take advantage of it. Don't you think so? Give them a hand. Yes, truly, because this is something that is so necessary, because the whole idea of Roundup, some people say, well, I just wash my vegetables. I buy this wash, and it takes up all the stuff. No, it doesn't take off Roundup. I had an Amish family in my office, and this happened just a couple months ago. I asked because I couldn't understand why there was such a high toxicity. And so I asked, do you ever use weed killer? No, I don't use weed killer, I use Roundup. And where do you use the Roundup? Well, I use it all around the house because it keeps all the weeds, so I don't need to go and pull the weeds up against the house where the grass would grow up high. He sprays it there, and well, yes, he does it around the outside edge of the garden, so he doesn't need to pull the weeds. And it's like, duh, what? You can't do this. This is poison. This is killing your family. This is harming everyone. So that Roundup is linked to, this glyphosate is linked to inflammation in the bowel. It's linked to obesity, depression. There's a brand new article that just came out recently in a magazine in Lancaster County, and it was on GMO tied to depression, that it's actually tied to much of depression that's happening. Cancer, very big thing. Remember Simoncini? And how many of you are watching the cycle right now on the computer of Ty Bollinger? Today's day 2. Excellent. Today's day 2, and it's free. There's 9 days. Come right on in. There's 9 days of filming. Ty Bollinger is the guy who wrote the book Cancer Outside the Box. And T.Y. Bollinger. And if you go to naturalnews.com, you'll certainly see a link. All you have to do is register for it, but it's free. But what Ty did last year, he went through the United States and interviewed various doctors, and they spoke of what they learned and how they have been able to help people, and people became cured of cancer. Well, this time, he traveled around the world. And so he has all of these face-to-face conversations with doctors from around the world about people that have been cured of cancer. This is really quite neat to see, that's for sure. But anyway, avail yourself of it. Another thing that's happening right now is brain-to-brain or one-to-one brain. Yes, Mike?
I was just wondering, I'm sorry, you said that we could find the link on where for that?
Naturalnews.com.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that'd be there's a link through Dr. Tenpenny. There would be a link. There was a link through, there's probably a dozen places that you can find a link to it, because these are all people that were interviewed on it. So, continuing, glyphosate, Roundup, causing autism. So, where would you find this? In a box of Cheerios? What do we see many times? In a bag of goldfish? Now Capri Sun has said that they're taking all the GMOs out of their labels. Nature Valley granola bars. Oh yeah, GMOs, all the way. Vegetable oil. In many, many things you'll find vegetable oil to be. So the two main weed killers that are being used is Roundup, which is glyphosate, and the other one is called Liberty. And those two weed killers are absolutely horrid to the central nervous system, to the brain, to the body's GI system, so that we are taking in some of these glycophosphates and don't know it. You may want to, if you don't have an app on your phone right now, an app that you can get for on your phone is called Shop No GMO. Shop No GMO. And that's an app you can buy for your phone. Another website that you can go to is non-GMOshoppingguide.com. non-GMOshoppingguide.com. So that there are ways in which you can actually help yourself to, but remember that Roundup is patented as a microbiocide to kill intestinal microorganisms. And the cause of botulism in animals and humans. And you ask anybody that works in an ER, and they're telling you that we're having a greater avalanche of people going to the ER with GI problems than we've ever had before. Wonder if it has to do with the foods that we're eating. Just might be. Any questions about GMOs? I'd like to show you a book. Jeffrey Smith is really quite a writer, and he wrote Genetic Roulette. Genetic Roulette is the documented health risks of genetically engineered foods. Now, this was written actually a few years before the book that I would tell each one of you to get a hold of, and that's this one. It's called Altered Genes, Twisted Truth. This is written by a public interest attorney who sued. He initiated a lawsuit against the FDA to force them to divulge their files on genetically engineered foods. And it exposed the agency for their total cover-up of what genetically modified foods does to the body. That is mind-blowing. Altered Genes, Twisted Truth. How the venture to genetically engineer our food has subverted science, corrupted government, and systematically deceived the public. This is an attorney who dared. Believe me, that is daring. But he won. And so he forced them to open up the files and start looking at what is GMOs and what does it do to the body. There's many books around, but if you are interested in something on GMO, go on Amazon or whatever and get yourself a copy of it. It's quite a dose to read. I had the idea that I would go and take parts of this and use this for my lecture today. And I tell you what, it's such heavy-duty stuff that you go, oh, that's a bore. But it's really something to read and to start realizing what we've done to our food chain and under the guise of that we're going to feed the world. It's baloney. In India, they have farmers committing suicide every so many seconds because they've used GMO seeds and their crops have failed. It's really sad. So, Seeds of Deception was the next book that Jeffrey Smith wrote. Seeds of Deception, Exposing Industry and Government Lies About the Safety of the Genetically Engineered Foods You're Eating. And so these are the basic books that really open your eyes up to. But what I said earlier about aspartame and MSG, this is a very old book. But this book I've used for many years to show people that there's an entire page of things that tell us about aliases for MSG. And one of them that still wreaks havoc in my mind today is the word natural flavorings. Because natural flavorings is anything but natural. Now, you want to have a number 2 book that you should own? Swallow This. Swallow This is by Joanna Blythman, I'll spell it for you. Joanna Blythman, Blythman. This gal she's from London. She has taken apart the food system and how food is being marketed, because you do not know what you eat when you go to a restaurant. You have no idea of what you're eating. She's saying how, and something that I knew in recent years was that if it's a soup, it comes as a frozen block. It's already put together. And so unless you're going to a farm-to-table restaurant, which we're very fortunate at New Enterprise, we have 2 of them right near us, Eat to Live and Horn of Plenty. And both of those are farm-to-table. If it doesn't grow on the farm and it wasn't harvested right then, you're not eating it today. So that we need to go back to this for our homes. We need to go back to this for what we are doing. Serving up the food industry's darkest secrets knows more than anyone else about where our food comes from. And it is all big industry, and it's all about the dollar. It's all about money. We can make it cheaper, and we can do it and without. So those are the 2 books I'd tell you that if you want to understand a whole lot more about what those foods are that would be toxic to the body and how it would actually affect the body. I gave you a paper called The State of Non-GMO, and God, don't have to stand at a picture. But I gave you a paper on the state of non-GMO. This is actually from a trade magazine. This is not from Whole Foods as a up, down. Page. Up, down. There, that's better. Okay. The state of non-GMO. In other words, Whole Foods is not the Whole Foods company that you may know of, Whole Foods store, by the way. And I would ban them in a minute. Whole Foods has stood for GMOs. Don't support them. Don't support them. If you have a Trader Joe's around here, don't you? That'd be far better to support than Whole Foods. Or if you have a CSA, or you have, pardon? Co-ops. Support them, because the thing is, you want to absolutely learn much more about who is your farmer and what is going on. So this is just a nugget from the October issue that is bringing you up to date, and you can read this at another time, about what's happening with non-GMOs, because that is something that you want to stay apprised of. There are organizations, there's actually chapters around in Pennsylvania showing you about non-GMOs and how you can help in the passing the word around and helping people to understand so much more about it. Okay, something else that I wanted to tell you quickly before we go into a list of protocols here, and then we'll start with allergies. I wanted to know, are you all aware of the newest and the most specific test for cancer that is in the world, that's right here from East Lafayette, Indiana? Are you aware of Oncoblot? No? Oncoblot, O-N-C-O-B-L-O-T, one word. Oncoblot is in East Lafayette, Indiana. I'm sure you're aware of CancerDecisions.com, which is Ralph Moss and his work that he has done. Ralph Moss has traveled the world and does that every year in investigating and in seeing charts and clinics of where they have proven cancer cure. But what we have here at Purdue University, two university professors, Dr. Morey and Dr. Morey, a husband and wife team, that actually developed a test that's a blood draw, that is a test that will show within 3 million cells, that's enough to sit on the end of a pinhead. No one in the world has ever been able to identify 27 different kinds of cancer in that small of an area. Do you realize that it has to be in the trillion of cells for mammography, which I don't agree with, to show what if there's a lump or a bump there? Trillions. This is able to show 27 different types of cancers within a blood draw. And you can go to Oncoblot, I think it's oncoblot.com, but this team, Dr. James Morey, M-O-R-R-E with a hyphen over it, and Dorothy Morey, they wrote a book called Ectonox Proteins, Growth, Cancer, and Aging, because the book is actually a couple of years old. But what they did, this team, they discovered how to identify cancer, but they held the information for 8 years. Let that sink in. They held the information for 8 years until they found something that would reverse it. Hold on to your hat, because this is mind-blowing. This couple, they did this profound research. He also started, he's conducted as professor at Purdue University. He was a Dow professor of medicinal chemistry and founding director of Purdue's Cancer Research Center. So what they did was, they found out that they could, within 3 to 4 months, reverse most cancers. I said 3 to 4 months, reverse most cancers by, write this down, Dragonwell green tea. In other words, having some green tea, and you already have that ingredient in a number of the Nutritional Frontiers products.
What's the ingredient?
Pardon?
What's the ingredient?
Dragonwell green tea. And you can make that Dragonwell green tea 10 times stronger. Now, I'm telling you in essence what's in the book. The book sells for $267 on Amazon, or if you go to their website, go to their foundation website, you will find that you can donate $100 to the foundation, Dr. Morey's foundation, and they will send you the book for that $100. But anyway, so Dragonwell green tea could be made 10 times more effective if the person were eating hot peppers, chili powder, or chili peppers. How many of you like hot spicy? Hot spicy, they found out that it actually does not allow the cancer cell to mature. Isn't that mind-blowing? It doesn't allow the cancer cell to mature. So they went and they also found out, and Dr. Ralph Moss, that's why I brought his name into it. Dr. Ralph Moss did a summary of this work and has written it, I believe it's for the November Townsend letter. If you get Townsend letter, you'll see it then. But he sent me a copy of the article, and I'll be glad to share it with you if you want. It's a number of pages long. But it's the article telling you, in essence, this. The other thing that you want to write down is several herbs that you make sure, but when you're telling somebody about herbs, they say, well, do you want dried or do you want fresh? Most of us want dried just because we don't have fresh on our windowsill. But don't let them go buy McCormick herbs. Let them get organic herbs because you don't want it radiated. It's been killed, okay? So you're going to write down rosemary, parsley, sage, thyme, and summer sorrel. Summer sorrel, I believe, will also pass for summer savory. Anyway, they found out if they put these herbs together in a jar, in a shaker, in whatever, and you just shook it on your food like you would salt and pepper. Not in lieu of, okay? But shake it on your food, or put it in soups, or put it in a casserole, or put it wherever. And there's not an X number amount that you need, but if you do this, they've actually found out that cancer cells don't seem to survive as well. Now, this is it. How simple can it be? But isn't that the truth about a lot of things? That it's so simple that it could hit you in the face and you didn't realize it? I talked to this on Monday morning, 8 a.m., appointment, somebody who was told that they had 2 weeks to live. They were on morphine every 3 hours. Never saw her before. And after spending 2 hours, going over some very basic things, and this was some of it. By Wednesday morning, I got the phone call and said, I want you to know that I went for 9 hours without morphine. Really? I didn't do anything to have you have less pain. She said, Ella, do you know that the word hope takes pain away? Think about it. Hope. I don't have any promises. There is no such thing as a promise. We're not God. But to go and tell someone that there's things that they can do instead of telling them, well, you have 2 weeks. Who are we? Come on. But anyway, so any questions about Oncoblot? Because it is a blood draw. Yes, it's expensive. It runs around $850. But I tell you what, if you had to identify something, there are so many people that are walking around, they know intuitively that something is wrong, and no doctor can find out what. Well, come back when it gets worse, or come back when it, whatever. Okay? So that, yes.
Could you spell that again, please?
Oncoblot is ONCOBLOT. One word, Oncoblot, and I'm sure it's oncoblot.com. I'm pretty sure is the website for it. And if you're oncoblotlabs.com is the actual website. They talk about a capsule T treatment, CAPSOL-T, capital T treatment, and there's capsule-T, that's T like Tom, .com. That's their treatment, and that is a capsule that has the hot peppers in it, along with the green tea in it. Now, Tavana, do you have a store around here like a Tavana? Okay. I went, because we don't have any in Bedford County, Blair County and the like, so when I was at my other clinic in Mannheim, I went into Park City in Lancaster, and there's a Tavana shop, and I went to ask, because I want to see this, I want to feel this Dragonwell tea. They told me there's none to be had for the rest of this year until it gets harvested next year. Well, I have some other people, Frontier Herbs, if you get from Co-op, because they're a co-op, and they're supposed to have some. But anyway, so they said that, what in the world would you want that for? Because everybody is wanting this. I said, don't know, but we're going to find out. I'm just curious. I wasn't about to go into a dissertation as to why. But anyway, the other thing is that Dr. Morey and Dr. Morey have this Enox 3 that they've actually discovered. This actually has to do with aging. And in other words, understanding how if we would use more things of hot peppers and chili pepper, that's pure chili pepper, not chili pepper with all the other things added, because then you can be assured that MSG is in it. Chili powder, I mean to say. So that you want to, they have done an amazing, their book contains over 1,000 scientific references, so that many of them were done by the Moreys themselves or their students and co-workers at Purdue University. And hats off to the publisher Springer, since they really have put together something that is quite mind-boggling. And every single person I've told this to take to their oncologist, I've not found one oncologist yet, and I've probably done this for 8 weeks. I've not found one oncologist yet, because I tell them, you ask your oncologist, you call me and tell me if that oncologist knows about this work. They don't know. It just tells us how steeped we are in a system that is so broken. This does not make oncologists bad people. This makes them that they are not with knowledge of a bigger perspective. This is what you and I are about. You are the ambassador of someone who is telling other and educating others to good things so that they can help their body to rebuild. I didn't ask, so I have what, 20 minutes left? Okay. So write fast now. Okay. Get your boots on. Allergies. I spent too much time on that. So let's talk about allergies and how allergies Mike has had Candace, put together a beautiful list here of pictures of products that is showing us what is in. Betazyme is something rad-free. Air Max. Air Max is amazing because for somebody that has an allergy, what do you think of first for an allergy? The first thing you think about is that the liver is in overload because the liver can't produce antihistamines. That's why people run to the drugstore and get Benadryl or whatever. So if you use something like your rad-free Immunomax, Air Max is amazing because you can actually have somebody suck on the tablet and actually see the difference. But go back to liver. Every time go back to liver because you can minimize allergies. Now my reaction is that I go to a homeopathic remedy. I'll use some Apis, A-P-I-S, because Apis is a remedy, and I'm sure that the day is coming soon when we'll see Jamie and Dr. Weiner have a whole segment of homeopathy, because since we lost Heal back to Germany, we need to have more companies producing homeopathic remedies. And what was just said back here this morning is that having homeopathic remedies that will antidote the immunizations and the vaccines. This is necessary. I just had a phone call from a nurse 2 days ago, wanted to know where is a doctor that will sign a paper saying that she had it when she didn't get it. Don't know. Deal with it. You're going to have the shot, and then you're going to have to deal, because these are people that are actually dealing with that their job is in jeopardy. Their job is in jeopardy. This is feeding their family. So that there is a lot of controversy going on, but allergies is certainly something that you can address. And I would like you, if you have a story to tell about yourself or about a patient of yours or client, raise your hand. I'd be more than happy that we could all hear it, because this is something that you also are learning and seeing some of these miracles to happen. Tell us about it. Page down, right? Alzheimer's. By the way, I wanted to pass this around first and forgot. Brain Boost 2. Jamie's going to talk about this. But you know, every one of you need to take, it says 3 capsules on there. What's the big deal? Take 3 and experience it. I have used vinpocetine for probably 6 years. And it is phenomenal as to what it's able to do for helping the brain to be alert, for helping your memory, for your focus, for concentration. Anyway, we'll start passing this around. The mic won't go that far. And help yourself. Some you've got water at your place. So take 1, take 2, take 3. I'm sure you won't have a problem, and I'm not aware of any of the ingredients in there, if you're on any prescribed medications, that it should interfere with any prescribed medications. But that is awesome. That's something that I think that every one of you will want to use yourself as well as for someone else. Neuromax is something that I've seen to do some phenomenal things. And I'm amazed at how many people, they can take supplements, and if you use things that are in a liquid form, many times you'll find it to be working so much better just because their body is not able to go and process. What's the #1 enzyme that's missing? Is hydrochloric acid. HCl is the biggest thing that is missing in nearly any kind of issue with health and wellness. And if we have that, we can remember by the time we're in our mid-20s, we already lost half of our hydrochloric acid because of eating foods that were cooked. And I'm not inferring that you should just eat raw only. Not everybody can eat everything raw. But Brain Boost is there, but Brain Boost Roman numeral 2, pass it around and help yourself. Enjoy, because it really is something that can really make a big difference. Vitamin D. Vitamin D3, not just about Alzheimer's. Vitamin D3 also makes a difference. Remember, and I said this before, I apologize if you hear me repeating some things, but UCLA did the research at least 7 years ago now that shows you that if you had an infection, vitamin D3 at 5,000 units per capsule, using 5 of them, that would mean using 100,000 units a day for 3 days, was more effective than antibiotics. And this does work. I've done this hundreds of times already. Vitamin D3, 100,000 units a day, spread it out throughout the day, and for 3 days only. Now, yes, there is such a thing as getting too much D, but if you go to vitamindcouncil.org, you're going to see Dr. John Cannell, the medical doctor who originally came from Pittsburgh. He's now in San Francisco. He tells you that most people should have a vitamin D level at least at 90 because of what all we're dealing with in environmental toxins. And so when a vitamin D level comes up at 110 and the MD goes, you're poisoned by vitamin D, you'll know you're not. Go to Dr. John Cannell's website and read vitamindcouncil.org and read about vitamin D3. It is not toxic. Yes, there is a toxicity point, but believe me, it is not right there.
Would you recommend that dose for kids too?
For kids, I probably would do probably half. Yeah. And remember, one of the things that is good, although right now there's a whole mess, I brought a notebook with at least a couple hundred pages of information on fermented cod liver oil because there's a mess of controversy at the moment. I need to go and visit a manufacturing place in Nebraska and see what I think as to what's happening. Not that that matters to you, but cod liver oil is your natural A&D, and it is so valuable. But the thing is, much of the cod liver oil in this country is processed too far. In other words, they processed it that actually got rid of the fish odor, which that isn't so bad, but the point is that we've lost the value of what it is. Because after a baby is 6 months old, I would like them to have at least a half teaspoon of cod liver oil. And that is, an adult should at least have a teaspoonful because it's really very beneficial. But if you follow any of WestonAPrice.org, you're going to see that there's quite a controversy about it right now. And it's about one company who they're suggesting that there's a problem with, and we don't know that yet for sure. Okay, but Alzheimer's. What was the Dr. Mary Newport? Remember her on YouTube? Dr. Mary Newport was the doctor who gave her husband, who was a mathematician, and he was a bookkeeper, and she gave him coconut oil and how his memory came back. What is coconut oil? Coconut oil is a medium chain triglyceride, so it's something that actually it gives the body energy. How many of you are drinking Bulletproof coffee? Ha-ha. Bulletproof coffee. Awesome stuff. This Dave Ashby has absolutely blown the whole lid off of everything. Dave Ashby, go look him up on YouTube. Dave Ashby, he's a geek from the Silicon Valley, computer geek, and he wanted to find a way that he could increase his IQ. He increased his IQ by 12 points. Anybody would like to do that? What he did was he went into the Himalayas and found out that they drank tea in the morning and they put a big spoon of butter into the hot tea and then drank it. He came back and thought, wonder what we could do. First of all, remember one of the things that he was experiencing was an issue with mold. Guess where mold is in the United States? In coffee. Our government has permitted that there's a certain percentage of mold that's allowed in coffee. So what he did was he went and started getting some coffee, and the prices, but anyway, I've used organic coffee, and it seems to be fine, but I don't know that, I don't want to make that statement for everybody. And for you, if you don't have raw butter near you, go to the grocery store and get Kerry butter, Kerry, and you see it's a little tub of butter that it says that it's from Ireland, it's from grass-fed cows, okay? And Ireland doesn't allow GMOs, so they didn't eat alfalfa. Okay, so Kerry butter, and then you get you could use coconut oil if you like. I'm not into coconut-flavored coffee, so I do medium chain triglycerides as a spoonful and put that in. Put a spoon of each of the butter and that into the coffee. Put it in the blender, zip it up just for a moment, and then drink it because it's like a latte. but it is something that is very beneficial. Yes?
Would ghee be a good substitute for that curry butter? The ghee is the substitute.
Ghee would be an excellent substitute. Yes, ghee would be an excellent substitute, especially for the person who might be sensitive to dairy. Ghee is often their savior, and thank you for mentioning that. Yes, ghee is something I propose to use a lot of. And so what he did was, and if you go to bulletproof.com, you'll see more information. He has a blog that's mind-boggling. As a matter of fact, he has, I have it out in the car, Defenders. He developed a new thing to put underneath your laptop so that you don't have any Wi-Fi radiation, so it's around $70. And when we have a break, I'll go out and bring the card in that can show you about it. So anyway, enough on that. But what we want to do in thinking of the brain, vitamin D, Brain Boost 2, and Neuromax, helping that brain to work so much better. It really is something. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, anemia. By the way, do you know that the #1 disease that is hitting here in Pennsylvania right now is kidney disease? Do you know that the #1 thing that happens to a person with kidney failure is that they become anemic? Because the kidneys are no longer able to go and call on the bone marrow to work properly. So as a result, betazyme, easy iron, and by the way, this is a wonderful iron to use because it is an iron that is not constipating, and it is an iron, yes, you can use the black iron skillet at home, and you can use blackstrap molasses, but not everybody can use that, and they will find out that this works very well. B12 is something that is so vital. So many, my parents, when they lived, I gave them a B12 injection. This is some years ago. I did it once a week because it kept their mind sharper, and it also kept their energy going so much differently. And so now we have B12 in drops, we have B12 in tablets that you can dissolve in the mouth. There's many ways. I saw a B12 back here on the shelf that you can use, so that B12 is available in many different ways. And the thing that I'll get to later on is that, if I talk faster, is that shingles. You can prevent shingles by making sure they have enough B12. Yes?
Does that help with the residual effects of shingles, like, say, a year later?
I don't think that I'd say that. What I would do with the residual effect is the same thing that I do with the onset of shingles is to go and use an apple cider vinegar pack. The only time I don't use it if the shingles is on the side of the face right at the eye, then I don't use it. But the apple cider vinegar, take a cloth, make it wet with water, wring it out tight, then put apple cider vinegar on it, put it right on where the lesions are for shingles, and it'll take the pain away right away. Then I use homeopathic remedies for some of it, but the thing is, shingles, to prevent the virus that happens, if you keep their B12 level up, they will not be able to get the virus, shingles. Yeah, it certainly is much better than having vaccine of some type. Okay, I wanted to, I also wanted to say about such things as anemia, fermented foods, and bone broth. I want to talk a little bit about, I'm sure you already have this, but if you don't, put it on your wish list. And that is nourishing broth. You can go to nourishingbroth.com and you can read about it. But bone broth, in here it talks, the first half of the book is just telling you testimonials and talking about Dr. John F. Pruden. Dr. Pruden was a medical doctor who he passed in the late 90s, but he was a medical doctor that actually went and he was the doctor who did double-blind studies to show how you could rebuild a joint without joint replacement, because he was a doctor in the time before we ever did joint replacements. And he did the double-blind proofs to show that if you use bone broth and use that, and you certainly want to use it with nutrients, but bone broth was that healing. Now, there's recipes in here. The last half of the book is all about healing. But the interesting thing is that the book, nourishingbroth.com, you can go to the website. This is by Sally Fallon Morell and Kayla Daniel, Dr. Daniel. But if you go inside the book, you're going to see some very interesting things. It's going to tell you how osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis can be totally changed with bone broth, and how psoriasis, wound healing, infections, digestive disorders, cancer, and mental health. Wow. Then it goes into sports and exercise. But nourishing broth is something to be reckoned with. We do not realize enough when someone is sick, please, dear God, don't get Gatorade. Get a mug of some nourishing bone broth. But remember, you want to know where the bones came from, because it could be fish bones, it could be chicken bones, turkey bones, venison bones, okay? Beef bones. But the point is, where did that animal grow? What that animal's from. As a kid, we always butchered our steer at home, and then we always took the bones and we put them in a great big cauldron, and we cooked them for several days, and then we canned the broth, because we always wanted to have the bone broth, because you use that for a soup base. Well, today, many of our young people today have no idea what this is, and we need to go back to this. So this is really important. Anorexia nervosa is my next one that we have. And I don't know if you know anybody with anorexia or not, but I tell you what, something that I've learned that has brought them right around is chromium. Chromium absolutely has brought them around. I use a lot of it for a short period of time, but these are things that are also very helpful. Certainly a multivitamin, zinc, and of course zinc is something that we think of for cold season now, but always keep your head together and remember that you don't use zinc 24/7 all the time, because you will deplete your copper. And so some people will see their joints and that kind of thing start having issues because they overused the zinc, didn't check with a hair analysis or some other way of checking to make sure that we keep the zinc and copper in balance, because remember, they both vie for the same assimilation point. B complex. B complex is something that absolutely we are so deficient in when we have problems with, whether it's bulimia or whether it's problems with such things as what's going on with the, whether they eat and then throw up, or else whether it's anorexia nervosa and they don't know. We'll do this one yet and then I'll stop. Okay, Calm Day. That is an awesome, any of you have lots of people using Calm Day? That is an awesome product. It really is. Mood Lift is also, there's your B vitamins again. Adrenamax, L-theanine. L-theanine, you know the new Life Extension went and put one together with magnesium. That's L-theanate, and it's for the brain. And it is something that it's called Neuromag. But anyway, the anxiety is something that we think of if they want oat straw tea. They can use lemon balm, or they could use chamomile, or they could use an essential oil of peppermint. Sounds, yes, it's for the digestive system, but it's also for what's happening in the gut. But I surely would think of Mood Lift and the L-theanine as being a wonderful thing, because L-theanine works. It's in the sleep time as well. But the L-theanine is a wonderful thing for anxiety. If you need something really quick, use some aconite, but aconite's not long. Aconite is a homeopathic remedy, but it's not long lasting. Remember, it's a very short acting remedy, so that if somebody has a homeopathic first aid kit, it will certainly stop the panic right at that moment, but they need things like this to go on, okay? Because aconite's not a vitamin pill. Okay, I think I'll stop here. It's 11, okay?